I just launched my very first game last week. How did it all go, and where do we go from here? Turtle Run is a challenging 2D action platformer with pixel art graphics where you play as a turtle protagonist who's found himself swept away to a mysterious and dangerous land. Leap, shoot, dodge and parry your way through various platforming levels, minigames and boss encounters to try and make your way back home to your beloved pond. It's available on Steam and itch, and as of making this video, still has a launch discount available. Check it out or add it to your wish list if it takes your fancy. Hi, my name's Mike from Cappiche Games, and today I want to chat a little bit about the process and the feelings leading up to release, as well as plans for the future. The last video I made where I reacted to Thomas Brush playing my game blew everything else I've ever made out of the water. It was a crazy ride watching the views, comments and subs come in. Quite surreal actually. I want to try and touch base with all of the new and existing subscribers and share a bit of an update on what's to come following Turtle Run's release. So, in March 2024, the stars aligned and my random browsing led me down the rabbit hole of game development. It's something I knew very little about, and it was always just this grey area that I never really thought I would explore. I have a degree in computer science and I work as a software developer, so it's not like the barrier to entry was preventing me from giving it a go. I've also played a lot of games in my life, so creating them is something that definitely would appeal to me, but for whatever reason, it just never really crossed my mind. I was heavily inspired by some of the videos by Pirate Software, so naturally decided to start using the engine Game Maker. I hadn't heard of Godot at the time, and Unity and Unreal just seemed far too overwhelming and unnecessary for learning the ropes. They're obviously both great engines in their own right, but a few times in the past when I've opened up Unity it's like, woo, I can get a guy running around after a few hours, but I never really know where to go from there. Like trying to run before you can walk. I also didn't think my lack of artistic capability would lend itself well to also trying to learn 3D modeling at the same time, though I've heard that even making 2D pixel art can be just as challenging for us non-artsy folks. I decided to commit myself to at least getting through Sarah Spalding's platformer tutorial. None of this doing a few lessons then deciding I know enough to go and create my own thing. Just ignoring that urge until I take everything I can from this tutorial series. I was aware of tutorial hell and decided I wasn't getting stuck there. I was going to do this one and do it fully. So, to cut a long story short, I finished the series and was immediately hooked on the idea of creating something of my own. It really felt possible and my mind was filled with all of these beginner ideas and a lot of motivation. I spent the next year of evenings and weekends sinking over 900 hours into learning and developing my skills and trying to understand the whole process of creating and releasing a game as an indie. Flash forward to today and my first release is out there. You know that feeling when you're trying to sit and figure something out or implement something and you're nearly tearing your hair out because you just can't figure out why it isn't working like you expect? Well, I definitely had 4 or 5 of those moments. Especially when it came to things like adding customizable keybinds for both controller and KBM, as well as saving and loading these preferences, adding leaderboard support, and even figuring out the math behind the cursed arced jump that the Streets boss has as one of his moves. These are the moments when you almost need to just let go of finding a solution and do the grunt work to learn the ins and outs of the system you're building, and do a lot of research and trial and error. One of, if not the main advantage I gained from already being a developer was knowing the process of researching solutions. Obviously application structure and managing projects really helped to prevent it from turning into a spaghetti coded application with so many loose ends and scope creep that it never got finished. But knowing not to give up, because you might only be one Google or Stack Overflow search away from finding the solution, was absolutely key. One of the scariest parts of the whole process, and something that I honestly never saw myself being able to do, was making YouTube videos. I realised early that if I want this to be something I do long term, building up a small and loyal audience would be critical. While I knew I wasn't going to be pulling in thousands of subscribers with my first game, especially with it being in such a saturated and solved genre, I went in with the attitude that this is my first of many projects and it's a long and slow journey to build up interest in your creative endeavours, so we may as well start early. When I first started trying to make videos, I literally couldn't even talk to the camera without my face going bright red and stumbling all over my words. I've always been horrible at public speaking. Even delivering my final presentation at college, it was only in front of 5 people, and my legs were proper shaking uncontrollably, and I was rushing through it with no diction at all. You'll be able to tell from earlier videos how uncomfortable I was, but I pushed through and started to slowly get more comfortable. As fate would have it, 6 months later, I was asked to be the best man at my brother's wedding. Now, if I had never broken that barrier of speaking to the camera and pushing through the discomfort, I would have been absolutely terrified and dreading the wedding, and definitely been nearly sick at the thought of delivering a heartfelt speech in front of a room full of guests. But thankfully, I managed to deliver it with confidence. I was well rehearsed and pretty much knew the whole 10-minute speech off by heart. The speech got a massive applause, and the guests were telling me all day that it's the best speech they've ever heard. I fully attribute this good fortune to the fact that I had started to tear down those barriers and become more comfortable with just putting myself out there. Just last month, I was also the best man at my best friend's wedding and managed to pull off another well-delivered speech, which just feels so gratifying. So the point of all that is, no matter what happens on your game development or your content creation journey, even if you don't end up finding success, you're still spending your time doing something positive that at the very least is going to benefit your life indirectly in the future. The only way you can lose is if you have lingering thoughts that you decide to just ignore. They'll come back for you one day. One of the most rewarding parts for game dev that I've found is the ability to express myself. A lot of days are spent just getting by and never really tapping into that childhood sense of wonder that's deep down inside of us all. Having a chance to explore that side of yourself and express it in an environment where you can then see the inner workings of your brain displayed on a screen that you can interact with is a really heartwarming feeling, and I know it's been really good for me to be able to get that out without social consequence. It can be anything from the art you create to the stories you write, just digging past that surface level of thought that we equip ourselves with every morning and getting down into the good stuff. It's almost therapeutic. I'm not sure if anyone can relate to that, but it's certainly one of the main driving factors for me in this pursuit. When I started out with the project, I told myself that I wouldn't put any expectations on sales figures, wish lists, or anything like that. I had a soft goal of achieving 100 wish lists prior to release and the game generating $100 in the month of release. But these were not some standards that I was going to measure the success against. After all, the purpose of this project was to learn the ropes and be a stepping stone to bigger things in the future. I had a really laid back attitude about it all until about 6 weeks before the release when I locked in the date. Everything seemed to get a bit real then. I went from not caring a whole amount and just enjoying the process to all of a sudden getting the fear of releasing something and it breaks day one, or gets negative review bombed because changing the volume crashes the whole system, or turning on vibration kills your pet cat. It's really easy to be unbothered by things until they're about to actually happen and you're going to release something that you've sunk so many hours and passion into to the world. All of a sudden, you do start to care a bit about how it's received. Mainly, for me anyway, you just don't want it to end up ruining the drive that you finally found and make you hesitant to produce creative works in the future. I decided not to just anxiously sit around on release day refreshing the numbers all day and then possibly having to create a day one patch for a rogue bug somebody had found. I took a trip with my brother to visit a friend of ours and just tried not to talk or think too much about the release and just see what happens. I will be going into a bit more about all the stats and release figures and all that good stuff in a future video. I want to also just give a shout out to the game dev and indie game community as well. It's genuinely one of the most supportive groups of people I've ever been a part of. When I first started, I thought for sure that my game would get an absolute slating, especially looking somewhat silly and childish in terms of graphics, as well as the genre it's in. Sometimes you just find that people get a little bit weird about you trying to do something a wee bit outside the box, and they have a bit of an urge to bring you down. Not the people in your immediate circle or anything, hopefully, but just the odd person on the internet that for whatever reason has decided they don't like you. And that's cool. With game dev though, I felt nothing but support from people. And I even see it with other first time devs working on their debut product. It doesn't appear to be anything incredible or out of this world, but there's a sense of camaraderie in the community for even trying. I think that's because people who have tried or actively do create games understand what an arduous process it is. So thanks everyone who supported the journey in their own way. So we all know that the percentage of games that get started and actually make it all the way through to release is really low. It's hard to pinpoint actual statistics for it, but a lot of people estimate it to be between 10 and 30%, which even seems high to me when you think about the number of abandoned projects. But even of this 10 to 30%, only about 1 in 3 or 4 of those developers will actually release a second game. I am as determined as I was during the creation of Turtle Run to release a second game, and many, many more after that. It's really tempting to jump straight into hammering out code for a second release while the iron is still hot, but I've decided that's probably not the smartest way forward. First off, I've decided I'll be switching from Game Maker to Godot. Obviously I'm familiar with Game Maker now and just purchased my commercial lifetime license, meaning that timelines wise, creating another project in Game Maker would be much more efficient, but I'm seeing it as an opportunity to take one step backwards to clear the path that lies ahead. I can see myself making many games in Godot if it feels good to me, and without providing any real technical reason, it just seems like the way forward, especially for one day venturing into the world of 3D. So I'll be taking a bit of a learning and reflection phase before diving in, taking the time to learn to use Godot while also pouring some thought into how Turtle Run went, the things I've learned that I can improve upon for future projects, and really focusing on making sure I'm doing things properly and not neglecting them until the last minute, like marketing, sound effects, etc. I'll be putting a lot more energy into getting videos out there as well, going through some of the post-release stats, expectations versus reality, what 1 year of game dev looks like, and all that good stuff. Showing game updates during development in the form of devlogs is a bit hot and cold. Some weeks you've got loads to show, and other times you're kind of just forcing something out there for the sake of it. My time moving forward will be split up into video creation, engine learning, project retrospective, and planning for the direction of Game 2. I'd like to end as well with a special thanks to everyone on the Discord server, especially those of you who playtested the game and gave me feedback throughout development. You've helped me create an awesome feedback loop that made the end product so much more polished and fun. I hope you're all still up for some properly organised playtesting sessions for future projects, as it's an insanely valuable resource to have as a developer. If you'd like to join the Discord server and become a tester, a chatter, or even just a lurker, you can join in the link in the description. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, you can subscribe to the channel, where I'll be regularly providing updates on the journey. If you like the look of Turtle Run, you can go and grab it while it's still on launch discount, or just add it to your wishlist for later down the line. Cheers.